Hey everyone, it's Phil from Ashland Leather. I've got a nice little camera set up today, so thanks Clayton for let me check out this cool Sony. But I had a couple of questions, people interested in why some of the shell Cordovan is different thicknesses. And I wanted to explain a little bit of that, and I thought a great way to demonstrate that would be this Johnny the Fox here. So this is a natural shell Cordovan Johnny the Fox with a reverse interior. And if you've been watching the videos, you might have heard me mention that the interiors, we need to pick specifically thin pieces of shell for this wallet. Otherwise, the wallet just gets crazy thick and you just wouldn't like it. So each shell has a random varied thickness to it. So I brought a couple different intense blue shells here to show you some of what I'm talking about. So this is a leather weight gauge. This will measure the ounces of thickness and the millimeters of thickness on any material, but we use it on the leather. So on the back here, I'm gauging that out to be about 5 ounces right now, which is equivalent to 2 millimeters. And this tends to be the thicker part of the shells. This section here. There's another section on the shell that we call the flap, and that's this sort of lower section of the shell right here. These tend to be much thinner. So let's gauge that out. And it looks like we're getting about half the thickness down here in the flap. This is gauging to about 2.5 millimeters as opposed to the 5 on the back. So what's happening here is something really interesting. And what you should know is that each shell is different and specifically different in the thickness. So when we dig down to that dense fiber layer of the shell within the hindquarters of the horsehide, the shell is found at different depths. So if we have to take more of the top layer off to mine down to that shell layer, the leather is going to be thinner because we had to dig more into it to dig off more substance to get down to this smooth shell layer. And if we don't have to sort of scrape off too much, the leather ends up closer towards this 5 ounce thickness. So we do tend to see the shells range from about 5 ounces or 2 millimeters to about half that, which is about 2.5 ounces down here in the flap. So I hope that clears up a little bit of confusion that we may have caused on the shells. If you've ordered a couple wallets, you might notice that there are a couple different, they might be 2 different thicknesses. These two look pretty similar because we try to cut all these roughly the same thicknesses. But from time to time, if you're ordering the same wallet 2 years apart, you might notice that your new one is a little bit different in thickness than the other, or it could be exactly the same. We tend to see more variation in thickness on an item like this Johnny the Fox, and that's because we're trying really hard to get these thin pieces of shell for the interior. If you're looking for something particularly thin, like I like the thin fat Herbies, which is an ironic thing to say, but I like when these wallets are a little thinner. We can special make that for you. It might take a little bit longer because not all shells are appropriately thin for that, but I can absolutely do it. It might just take a little longer. And there's also a misconception for thickness with leather. So just because the leather is thicker does not make it any better. It's just thicker. And everything we make is guaranteed forever. So there is a notion going around that when the leather is thicker, it's stronger and more durable. I have not seen that to be the case. I have plenty of thinner wallets that are lasting plenty amount of wears, and I've just seen them just get better and better. So don't worry about that if you're looking to get a thin piece. All right, so let's take a look at some of the stuff that's shipping out today. And I wanted to start with this natural Lancaster Fat Herbie, which is a new leather from Horween on our Fat Herbie. I've been wearing one of these for the last, 36 days, and I've been really enjoying it. Here's how mine has worn in. To give you a sense of this, I've been saying that if this wears in to become darker, I think the Lancaster is going to be absolutely amazing. It might be one of my new favorite leathers, but that's sort of yet to be determined. There is something I'm noticing on this leather that's super cool, and I'm hoping that with this camera, the luster might show a little bit better, because on the one I've been wearing for the last month or so is developing a nice little sheen to it, where the new ones definitely start off a little bit more of like a matte dull finish. It's very nice. Also, by the way, it has a crazy soft velvety feel that I really like. But the way that mine is wearing in, so far so good, is my current verdict. So if you're looking to try out one of these, try the experiment with me. I believe there's 1 or 2 left available on our website. So up next here, we have a Tony the Ant and a really nice looking natural shell Cordovan. We were just talking earlier that the natural shell Cordovan is our most popular shell Cordovan color. Just that really nice golden color. And on the inside here, also natural shell Cordovan with that really cool Horween ink stamp. And this is the big brother to that last Tone of the Ant. This is the Fat Herbie, also a natural shell Cordovan. Really nice looking. The Fat Herbie was the first wallet that I started making when we started this little company. And people really liked the aesthetic of this wallet with the bill slot on the back and those particular curves. So we made the Tone of the Ant as a complement to that, because people wanted that Fat Herbie aesthetic, especially like this exterior bill slot and all those curves, but they wanted it in a little bit more compact form factor. So that's how the Tone of the Ant came out. But I really like the Fat Herbie because of the card layout. When you put your cards in there, it just lays flatter in your back pocket. So if you're a back pocket guy like I am, I just find this to be the most comfortable back pocket wallet to sit on. And I have a couple more Fat Herbies today. This is a really great looking color number 4 shell Cordovan Fat Herbie. And for about a decade, the color number 4 was my absolute favorite shell Cordovan color. I just love that medium brown. And at certain angles, you get hints of red in there that are really, really cool. It's sort of like a parlor trick of how the color changes on this one. I just think it's really neat. And this one has that reverse interior. And we were doing a flash sale on these yesterday, and they sold out very quickly. So we're really humbled by the amount of support that you guys have shown us on these color number 4 with reverse interior Fat Herbies. So thank you again. And one more Fat Herbie today. This is the Cobalt Blue Dublin Fat Herbie. And this is one of the most recent color additions for us at Ashland. And the Cobalt Blue has been selling really well. I think people like the color depth of this. Not only is it just like a nice blue shade, but it has this really interesting depth from a dark navy on the surface to more of like a aqua blue, depending on if you flex the leather or not. So like you can see there, when I flex it, the undertones of this leather are more of that nice aqua blue, where the surface just has a really deep navy shade to it. So the combination of those two just make this a really special Fat Herbie. Last and finally up today, I believe this is our last whiskey shell Cordovan Johnny the Fox with a reverse interior. I'm a big fan of the whiskey shell, and for many years, this was the most difficult and challenging shell Cordovan color for us to get. So people often sought out this color. I think probably because it's rare, but also I think people like the light tan colors of this. When you compare that to the natural shell Cordovan, the natural is very similar, but the whiskey tends to be a little bit darker and a little bit more golden and yellow in color. But they're very similar, and once you wear these for about 6 months, they will look quite identical. But on the inside, this one also has a really neat randomized Color 8 reverse interior that I really love. So thanks for checking out all the great stuff today, including this whiskey shell Cordovan Johnny the Fox. We also had an incredible new Cobalt Blue Dublin Fat Herbie. I've been using the Lancaster Fat Herbie. That's going pretty well for an experiment. This natural shell Fat Herbie, the color 4 with reverse interior that you guys have been so kind to support us with. So thanks again, and I'll see you again tomorrow with some more stuff.